Police, don't move. Hey, can you hear me?
Listen to me!
Get out of my house! I'm calling Jim!
Hey, is that my wife you're talking
No. Hey, hold on, man. Open the door!
I'm here to announce the loss of one of our law enforcement family.
Going through some pretty rough times.
Why don't we go outside?
Okay?
Oh my God.
Let us help you.
In law enforcement, officers are exposed daily to potential assault, murder, and human tragedies. These stressors, when experienced over time, can lead to an increased risk of suicide. Studies have shown that more law enforcement officers take their own lives each year than are killed by felons or die in other duty-related accidents. It's been found that the main barrier in the prevention of law enforcement suicide is the police culture itself. It's one of the culture's long-hidden problems. Creating awareness of the issue of law enforcement suicide, having the tools and training in place, and most importantly, being able to discuss the subject openly among all ranks is integral in helping to save officers in crisis from killing themselves. My name's Beth Ruyak, and I'll be your host. During the course of this training, the following key topics will be covered. We'll discuss how suicide prevention and awareness should be the responsibility of everyone involved in law enforcement. We'll talk about postvention. When a suicide does happen in an agency, how should a police organization respond to it to best support the department and help coworkers, family, friends, and the community cope with it? When addressing prevention, we'll discuss understanding police culture, myths, and attitudes that may contribute to the occurrence of suicide within law enforcement. Intervention is key in preventing suicide. By understanding the warning signs, triggers, and symptoms of a person in crisis, law enforcement can better intervene and support an officer that may need assistance. We'll also review some final thoughts regarding suicide prevention and the importance of maintaining a balanced life and seeking help when it's needed.
Police, don't move. Hey, can you hear me?
The prevention and intervention of suicide requires that everyone in the agency is on board, starting at the top with the administration and supervisors. With a prevention program in place and ongoing training, the supervisor, along with peer support and other resources, ensures that an officer, when in crisis, has the assistance they may need to save their life.
Okay, 51 Paul 1 will be Vargas, Paul 3 Wilson, 51 Paul 5 Watson, and Paul 7 will be Garcia. I'll be out there for your Code 7 relief, so call me when you need me. Before we head out, I've got an announcement to make. Our lieutenant has made his decision, and we have 2 new training officers to congratulate this morning, which is good timing because we have an academy graduating next week. Deputies Yeager and Garcia, please step up and get your pins.
Come on, man.
Come on, that's bullshit.
Oh, come on, Dave.
No, we got passed over again.
Oh, man.
After all they've done for this department.
Come on, Dave. Dave, come on, man. Sit down.
Dave, come on, sit
Fuck
down.
you, son.
Dave, come on, man.
Ron, sit down.
Oh, come on, man. Look, come on back in here,
Ron,
Dave.
Ron, sit down. Sit down.
You have no idea what this man's going through.
Ron, I'll talk to him later. Sit down.
You gotta be kidding me, man.
Yeager, come get your pin.
I don't even be
Congratulations.
kidding
Good job.
me. Man.
Attention all River County units, information only. River City Police are responding to shots fired at 8846 Ridgeton Court. 8846 Ridgeton Court. Shots fired at that location, information only.
527, repeat the address, please.
527, the address. Shots fired at 8846 Ridgeton Court. 8846 Ridgeton Court.
You gotta be shitting me. That's Dave's house. 527, show me en route.
River City Police. River City Police. See this here?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Oh, wow, this guy's definitely a cop.
The police, don't move. Hey, can you hear me? 612 to 610. I got one down in the backyard with a gunshot wound to the head. He's not responding.
Dave, the house is clear.
All right.
Yeah, there's a uniform in there, man. This guy's a deputy.
Oh, shit.
Go and check in. We got you.
All right. He's dead.
Shoot himself?
Looks like it.
Jesus. Okay.
We're going to go start securing the scene and making notifications.
Okay.
Damn.
612 dispatch. We're going to need the supervisor out here at the scene.
All right. Well, let's go from probably this tree to maybe over there.
Little tree.
Yeah, I think that would probably be
Hey,
good.
who's this? Who's this?
I don't know, but he's coming in fast.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
I'm Ron Lewis, River City. What's going on
Ron,
here, man?
hey.
This is my partner's house, man.
Right.
He's a deputy. So, what's the shots fired? What's going on?
Yeah, we responded to a shots fired call
Right,
here.
what's up, man? Come on. What's going on?
Ron, we've got some really bad news for you.
All right. What's up? Tell me about it. What's going on?
Looks like your friend Dave he's passed away.
Man, Dave, what, you sure you got Dave Wagner in there?
Looks like Dave possibly shot himself. Is what it appears happened.
My partner, Dave Wagner.
Your partner.
Man, look,
Ron,
this is
Ron,
bullshit,
Ron,
man.
Ron,
You got the wrong guy, man.
Ron, you know you can't go in
Partner,
there.
man.
Stop.
Ron,
You know you can't go in
come on,
there.
man. You
Back
know you
up.
can't go in there.
You gotta be kidding me, man.
Keep
No.
it together, Ron. Keep it together.
Ron.
I don't believe this.
Let's go talk for a
I
second.
don't believe this, man.
I know.
Are you sure it's Dave?
I'm positive.
Oh my God.
I'm positive, all right?
Oh my God. What about Ann? What about his wife, Ann?
wife?
Where's she at?
We haven't
Come
seen
on,
anybody
we don't know.
else.
Ron, listen.
Ron,
Where's Ann?
there's
You
nobody
need
else.
to calm down. Let's do our job, all right?
Okay, but
You
where's
know
his
we'll do
wife?
it.
Where's
I
Ann?
don't know where his wife is. We haven't gotten that far yet. All right?
don't know
Maybe
yet.
you can help us a little bit and tell us where Ann is, okay?
We gotta find Ann. I need to tell Ann, man. I gotta.
Okay.
I gotta tell Ann.
We can probably work
We
that
can
out.
let you do that.
My
Okay?
partner.
Let's go have a seat. You can help me find Ann, and we'll work things out, all
Come
right?
on. Come on.
Oh my God.
Come on. Ron, come on. Let us
Oh
let
my
us
God.
help you, okay?
Oh my God.
Let us help you.
I think suicide prevention awareness is essential for everyone up and down the ranks and should be constantly stressed because everybody holds a piece to the puzzle, and sometimes we don't have any one person that holds all the pieces. And if you could recognize the piece you hold for what it is, maybe you can make the difference in someone's life. It has to be ongoing because this isn't something that just happens and goes away. It's something that has to be, we have to keep up our awareness, we have to monitor what's going on, and we have to be looking out for our brother and sister officers.
I think training of supervisors, but not only supervisors, administrators also, in this type of subject, suicide prevention, psychological survival for police officers, is imperative because it is those people in those positions who are making policy. It is those people who are in a position to see a pattern of behavior in an officer. In a lot of cases, it is the supervisor, the first line supervisor, the sergeant, the watch commander, who sees the behavior in the officer. And if they aren't trained in how to recognize that behavior, then they're not going to know there may be something else going on.
Most police organizations, sheriffs, police departments, do not have a suicide prevention program. And it was startling to me. And then I realized, well, the Highway Patrol didn't have one. These other agencies don't have them. So something needs to be done, something needs to be developed.
We have to be responsible enough to take care of them and follow through.
and make sure that the resources that they get are sufficient, and that they're current and up to date, and that maintaining confidentiality is really important. Officers won't ask for help if they know that their stuff is being put out there, if they know that everybody's going to know their business. It's tough enough asking for help in the first place, and when they do, they need it to be maintained. They need it to stay confidential, because then the next time they're in trouble, they may very well ask for help again, because they got it and it was taken care of and it was respected, and that's huge, especially for police officers.
We want them to be healthy peace officers, and you're going to be there to help them be successful. We all go through rough times, and you need someone to lean on, and they need to know that the person who's in charge is going to support them. And that is our role, to let them know that we're going to be there for them in their worst time of need. Not just in the shootings and the pursuits and the horrible events that occur to police officers, but when they're in their deepest, darkest hour, and it may not even be related to the job, that we're going to be there for them and make them whole. And that's our role as managers.
The police academy trains new recruits about the fact that they're going into a profession that is extremely important. They're placed at a very high level, they're placed on a pedestal, and they're given this information about the fact that they are looked up to and they are supposed to be the best of the best. And what they don't tell you is when that is taken away from you, for whatever reason, whether it could be an administrative action, maybe you're injured and you can't do the job anymore, they don't tell you the psychological damage that could happen to you when that is taken away. And when you're at the most critical and the most vulnerable, you have almost zero support at the administration level, at the department level.
There's 2 assistant chiefs and 1 chief that has put themselves into the program. We are learning peer support. We have attended the suicide prevention program training, and the reason for that is twofold. 1, to show our officers we support it. Top managers are going to be participating in this. We support it. It's imperative that they understand that we are not going to sit idly by and do nothing, and that when their needs when they have needs, they're going to be met. Number 2, what many people don't understand is managers are human too. And when they go through these horrific events, they need someone to talk to as well. So the managers will have peers as well who have gone through the training to also maybe recognize symptoms that may occur in the upper side of management, that maybe there's something going on there that we need to look at and help our managers with.
Ideally, law enforcement administrators are going to recognize the reality, which is they have a responsibility to take care of their human resources on a moral and even an economic basis. Economically, it costs anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 to replace coppers. So that's a lot of radio cars. It's worth going that extra step. And what does that step entail? That means doing things like getting a peer support program and making sure it's effective and real.
I mean, after all, if the leadership is demonstrating that there is an issue and then motivating its members to go ahead and take a partnership and come into some kind of a solution, then they are in fact taking care of their organization. And I think the membership will sincerely appreciate that and acknowledge it. And I think that officers do what they need to do as it is, and I think they'll even give more towards the organization if they know that the organization is a caring one as well as an effective one.
I think supervisors are often key when it comes to spotting a law enforcement officer who is in trouble. So that they need to have a couple different kinds of training. One is that they need to be able to know signs and symptoms of distress. I mean, that's just basic. You need to have your eyes open. You need to be looking for, kind of looking after the care and feeding of your cops. You need to be able to know what's going on with them.
You know, one of the roles in policing is leadership, and one of those roles of leadership is to care about your family, your police family. Part of what we need to do is educate our family we need to set up structures and systems that support our family, and that's chaplain programs, peer programs, having trusted psych professionals that understand our culture on our speed dial, so that when someone walks into your office and you look at their eyes and you know something's not right, you need to have that system in place to plan for that day. Trying to set it up on the day it occurs doesn't happen. In fact, it just makes it worse. So build for the future. It's not just building for the suicides that may occur in your organizations, it's building for that day in which you may lose somebody to a car accident or a shooting or to cancer.
Law enforcement officers are problem solvers. We're the ones that go to the scenes of chaos and try to make it right. When we have our own problems, we want to deal with it ourselves. We don't want to ask for help. One of the hardest steps is to get an officer to accept that it's okay to ask for backup. It's okay to ask for help in your personal life. That backup is a good thing.
It's extremely important for an officer to think that his department is behind him, and it's an acceptable thing to go to peer or to go to counseling. If he doesn't feel that way or she doesn't feel that way, they're not going to go. They're not going to jeopardize their career under the fear of the stigma of going to a psychologist and start talking about things. That stigma, a lot of them believe, will affect a promotion.
In the beginning, when we first started training our area reps, there was some reluctance on their part to take on that role. They didn't sign on to be counselors. They signed on to do labor issues. It was quickly realized that while they didn't seek out the role, they do have the role. People come seek them out with their problems. Like I said, initially they were kind of reluctant to have the training, but since we have been doing this training, they've all embraced it. They're all happy with it. They're glad to have those extra tools when they are forced into the situation of acting to save a life.
If we're truly the family we say we are, and if we take care of our own truly like we say we do, then we have to care enough about those guys and gals around us to step out and take a risk and watch out for each other. I don't think there's an officer out there that would not back up a fellow officer out in the field if he was in trouble. And this is not much difference, and we have to take the risk and care for those around us.
Peer support is very, very important when it comes to suicide. A lot of departments have very small cadres of individuals. In Phoenix, we're very lucky we have over 100. And the responsibility is set forth is for our individuals to go out and be active listeners. We listen, we listen, we listen, and when they stop talking, hopefully we have the communication skills to get them to continue to talk so we can determine their needs, if we can help them, and also know our limitations as peer support and CISM team members. Limitations are huge, and when we realize our limitations have been met, to move them on to the next level, which might be a chaplain, might be a mental health care professional, and it's very important to realize it's time to move on, time to get them the help they need beyond our skills, and make them successful.
I think it's important for law enforcement agencies, be they big or small, to set a goal that at some point they'll have a part or full-time peer support coordinator or a staff person that's a mental health professional, because this is a career that has a high amount of losses, that has high rates of suicide and alcohol dependency and relationship breakup. So it only makes sense that you would have a person responsible for kind of overseeing your whole staff. And the more people that you can get to do intervention, prevention, education, the healthier your staff is going to be.
For peer support, they're put in a really tough position because they want to continue to be an ally and somebody that they can lean on. So they don't want to blow the trust. But you have to think about the bigger picture, and if somebody's saying things that are just big, huge red flags that something is coming down the pike that isn't going to be good, and you know that, you'll get a bad feeling in your stomach. You can't ignore it. And by getting them the help that they need, then they'll be able to be back to their old self and enjoy work and enjoy their life outside of work.
So I think it's very important to create a support network around a person that's facing a long-term issue.
And so you don't hesitate, you ask the question. You ask the person if they're thinking about suicide. And you don't let fears hold you back. Fears about, well, what if I'm wrong? What if they're mad at me? What if I get them in trouble? But you don't let your fears interfere with getting them to the help that they need.
We're in a profession where we are in control all the time. We solve problems. We don't have problems. And to admit that I can't control my problems, I can't control my relationship, is akin to saying I'm out of control.
I think when someone contemplates suicide, they're in a position emotionally and mentally where they feel there is no other option. And they're in such a state that they feel helpless, they feel hopeless, they feel no one understands. And the fear level of even talking about what got them there in the first place is so high, they internalize. And more often than not, if they don't get help, obviously the end result is actually completing the act.
From their perspective, suicide is the correct answer. It is the coping mechanism, it is the option that they think is their only choice. So anything that I can do that is going to widen out that view and maybe buy some time and create hope.
The bottom line for me with people when they're having a rough time is they need to reach out and let somebody know what's going on. You really need to talk to somebody, if it's your partner that you ride with, or a supervisor, if that's the last thing, another officer that you're close to, but let somebody know what's going on.
I think officers need to realize that committing to their own mental health and taking responsibility for themselves psychologically is just as important as they would not missing their court date, or making sure they, provide for their families financially, because they're no good to anybody if they're not mentally okay, if they're not supporting their mind, body, and soul.
There are no holds barred. I will say anything that I think will reach that person and help them get out of the place they're in, because they are in such a place of pain and such a place of like tunnel vision that they're not seeing options that are outside of this little narrow corridor right here.
We train in law enforcement. If we use the right tactics, if we say the right thing, we'll have a positive outcome. And unfortunately, suicide will occur. Police suicide does occur, and it is a phenomenon. It's a tragic, horrible event that no one wants to go through, but we do need to be able to deal with it, and we need to deal with the aftermath.
There's really four deaths that really impact our careers. It's the death of children, the death of seniors because of the vulnerability, the death of family and friends because of the closeness, and then the death of coworkers because of the "but for the grace of God, there go I."
How am I going to take care of my people when it happens? Don't think that it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, it's probably going to. So you have to plan like everything else. We don't like to plan for in the line of duty deaths, but we know it's going to happen. You need to plan for these events, and what are you going to do to help your people so you don't lose more than just the one officer?
All of my partners' suicides had impact, but there's the cumulative effect to their deaths. In over the 28 years is how many more will occur, and knowing the number of cops that kill themselves versus their lives are taken in the line of duty, we have to do something as a profession to stop it.
I think it's important that we need to bring it out of its shameful place because we're dying. And so we need to take it seriously and that it shouldn't be a dirty little secret anymore.
We as humans, we don't like to change. We change when the pain becomes more than our fear of what it's going to be like to do it differently. So I don't think law enforcement's any different than the rest of the world, is that as a whole, we will change when it becomes painful. And when we lose someone, when someone commits suicide, there is incredible pain. And so the motivation to do something, to look at what did I miss? Do we need to have more training? Do we need to have more support? That's what drives change.
I'm here to announce the loss of one of our law enforcement family.
When a suicide does occur within an agency, there may be more than 28 persons directly affected by the suicide. How a department handles the postvention, the actions they take to help the survivors left behind, can greatly affect the healing and grieving process.
Captain Vasquez. What? That's a damn shame. Look, I'll need the specifics so I can arrange a debriefing for the department. And it's going to be very, very important to make notification before it gets to the media. Listen to me. I have to check the emergency notification list to see who needs to be notified. And what I'll do is I'll start getting the crisis team together. Is there anybody out there at the scene from the SO? Okay. All right. This is going to be a tough one. It really is. All right. Thanks.
When a suicide has occurred, how they handle the postvention, the aftermath of the suicide, believe it or not, makes a huge difference in whether another suicide occurs. If they can handle it with sensitivity and honesty and with support for the personnel, then they've gone a huge step towards making sure that another suicide does not happen.
Having written policies in a department, especially at times of suicide or the tragedy, is critically important. At the time of a major incident like that, especially suicide, emotions tend to run high, and decisions really can't be made based on emotion. And usually what happens if things are happening in that regard is that inconsistencies happen, people's feelings are hurt. A lot of things happen of a very negative nature because things are applied inconsistently.
It stays with you forever and ever and ever. You're going to remember the sounds, you're going to remember the smells and the sights forever. And there's no way around it. You know, and if you're in this business a long time, you know, it's not if it's going to happen to you, it's when. You know, and that's just the way it goes.
We are a close-knit community, so when we lose one of our own, it impacts everyone. It impacts friends, families, colleagues, everyone from the dispatcher to the partner to the supervisor. You have just one, and it has an impact that is felt for months, if not years. So you kind of have to make a case for one is enough to want to take some kind of action about. So whether we're higher or lower, yeah, that's good for the statisticians to know. But for my heart, I would say one is too many, and we need to take action even if it's one.
When I had an officer talk to me in the morning, and then in the afternoon he chose to take his life, I found myself going back into what if I had said, what if I had done, what did I miss? After all, I'm a psychologist and I'm supposed to understand these elements, and I missed this completely on one of my guys, and so I realized after weeks of what-ifing myself that this was not going well with me, and I'm here to tell you that you've got to give up the what-ifs. The what-ifs will kill you.
After a completed suicide, it's really important that law enforcement knows that they've got resources available that day, the next day, a week, a year, long after a completed suicide, because it's hard to say when somebody's really going to be affected and it's going to come up for someone that they need to address their reaction to a suicide. Often it's because of other things happening in their life that they have they find that they need counseling.
Over 28 years of my law enforcement career, I've had 3 partners kill themselves. When you lose a partner that way, you think about, boy, will I think about that at some point in my career. You know, and then at least for 2 of them, there was the out of the blue. I didn't know they were going to do it. Phil, when he went off the Golden Gate Bridge, that was just a shocker, because Phil was what we consider the perfect cop, cared about people, ethical, well-respected. You know, he was one of my training officers at one point in my career. Just a wonderful man. And for that to happen, it just took the wind out of my sails for a while. And then when another buddy of mine, Don, when he took his life, you know, the way I found out about it was turning on the morning news at 6 a.m. and seeing a news helicopter over his house, filming his body covered in a tarp. So, yeah, it hit home. And I'd seen him the night before at work, about 8 p.m. He was going out. He had a trainee in his car, and had a smile on his face. And I'd asked him, "How you doing, Don?" And he says, "I'm doing pretty good." He wasn't.
Sometimes, when an officer sees no way out, he may turn to acts of desperation. That was the case with veteran Sheriff Robbery Detective Craig Allen Trimble, who on December 30th, 1990, committed a robbery when he had serious financial problems. Resorting to suicide as the final solution, he left behind many unanswered questions and coworkers and family who wished he had asked for their help.
My father had been with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department for 19 years and was currently assigned to the elite robbery detail as a detective. And he was well liked, he was the funny guy and had a radiant smile, and was known as somebody that would give you the shirt off his back, if you needed it.
Craig was kind of a cop's cop. Every time I had a search warrant or I needed to go talk to a bad guy that I wasn't comfortable with, he'd be right with me. If I had to kick a door, he'd be right with me. It's somebody I could depend on.
On December 30th, 1990, my father entered a grocery store in Northern California and hid in the freezer section until the store closed. After the store closed, my father then gathered up the employees one by one and tied some up and held them in an employee break room. And the goal was to keep them there during the night until the bookkeeper came in the morning, where she could open the safe and he could get the money out of the safe and flee. After my father fled the grocery store with the money in hand, he got into an employee's vehicle and fled the location. He had a portable radio with him and was able to hear the officers, the deputy sheriffs, narrowing in on the tracking device that he was carrying in the bag. And as my father continued driving, he could hear the radio traffic that there were two officers behind him, and he pulled over to the side in a residential neighborhood and shot himself.
Last night, patrol caught a bad guy, caught a robber, and they said, "It's your case." And there was a picture, an SX70 Polaroid picture on my desk of the bad guy sitting in a truck with his face down on my desk, and I just kind of looked at it. Said, "Oh, great, another piece of crap we caught."
My father's partner was assigned the case, and I remember being told that he felt a sense of happiness when he found out that the robber had in fact committed suicide, which would save the taxpayers a lot of money, but then later discovered that it was his partner that had committed suicide, and then the tables turned and it turned more grim.
All I had to do is open up and say, "Hey, Bobby, I need some help," or "Can you loan me some money?" or "I got issues here." Yeah, I would have stopped working my cases and helped him, but he didn't.
There's a lot of unanswered questions regarding my father's suicide. I only know and can speculate that in the desperate time that he had made some poor choices, and that he knew that was the only way out, that he was not going to be caught, and that if he was or got in that position, that he would take his own life.
People who get to that edge like Craig did need to reach out. They need to reach out to any family, friends, anybody they can, and just talk to them. Just saying, "This is what's going on in my life. I'm not sure which direction I should go. I need some help." Anything, just start talking about it. And it'd be surprising how major issues in your life at that particular point aren't that big a deal once you start talking about it, and can be resolved without any major incident like what happened here.
It's been very difficult to talk about my father's suicide, but I think it is important to educate others and to let them know that there are resources out there, and to please take advantage of those resources. Don't just think that you're the only one and that nobody can help you, because think about all the people that you're leaving behind. And so I really believe that with this, with training and education, that people can be reached.
I'm sorry for your loss, man. It hurts, sir. It really hurts.
Chaplain, how are you? Ron, when you go in, The department is here for you and for her. Just give us a call. Chaplain's here. We're behind her 100%.
Yes, sir. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Ron.
How you doing? Hey, Andy, look, you know Captain Vasquez, right? And
Ron,
Chaplain Bob, right?
What's going on?
And
Ron, look at me. What's going on?
And
is it Dave?
Dave killed himself this afternoon, okay? And oh my God, my God.
Why'd you do this?
I don't know. It's a little Dave.
Yeah, baby. Back to Grandma, Mommy. I'll be with you in a minute, okay?
And I don't know what to tell you.
I don't understand.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what happened. I don't know why. I have no idea.
Understand where
I have no idea. But Ann, I'll be here as much as I will be here for you.
Well, the notification team is a very critical component, trying to get an agency head or somebody that's of a high-ranking officer involved, the chaplain, and then maybe a personal friend of the deceased to come to make a notification. And speed is of the essence because we don't want our families to hear something through the news or something like that. So the notification component is very important to have the right team in place and do it very quickly. And then following up with the family, we really need to have a liaison to the department that's going to help, not necessarily the chaplain, but an officer that will help through the initial time, through the funeral. And then usually the chaplain or department will hopefully stay involved with his family and help them through their very rough times of the grieving process.
The chaplaincy is very involved with law enforcement, and certainly in postvention. The chaplains take on the responsibility oftentimes of the funeral. And it's a big responsibility. And the chaplaincy also has multi-faith abilities. So if someone's of a different faith, they can bring in a chaplain that deals with that, or they can bring in someone from that faith and help brief them on what it is that the membership needs to hear.
Settle down, please. I'm here to announce the loss of one of our law enforcement family. It's a very, very sad time. It wasn't to a bad guy. It wasn't to sickness, wasn't to old age. It was a suicide. River City PD discovered Deputy Dave Wagner at his home, died of a gunshot to his head. It is a suicide, folks. I want to dispel all rumors. Suicide is preventable. We have the chaplain, we have EAP, we have peer support. Use them. We all saw the signs. If you see one of your fellow officers or any family member, please use these folks. They're here to help. Later on today, I'm going to post the funeral arrangements. Anybody that would like to go, the department will send you. Please, if you know Dave's family, his wife, his kids, show them the support that you can. Anybody that worked closely with Dave, please show him the support. If you see the signs, contact one of these people. I don't want to be making notifications like this. It rips your heart out. Look around you. We're all family. Thank you.
Man, he just gave me his dog last week.
He was talking about financial problems. He was always asking me for money.
Yeah, I talked to him a couple weeks ago. He was telling me that he was having trouble with his wife and that if she left him, he was going to eat his own gun.
And then he didn't get that FTO thing.
You heard what he did with the Sarge, right, when he walked out?
I heard he flipped him off on the way out.
Oh, he was gone.
Well, after a suicide of an officer, it's very important to probably have a diffusing, which is on scene or near scene relatively quickly after the event, which is a time that information, factual information, can be disseminated so everybody understands what has happened. There's not rumors going around the department. And they also can be told educational information about self-care and things they may be experiencing in the future. Then this also helps set up a formal debriefing if that should be necessary, maybe 36, 72 hours after the event. So both of those kind of work hand in hand and very important in incidents like this.
The notification to the organization, that needs to be done, I think, at roll calls, with dispatchers, with your civilian staff. And I always lead it with, today we lost a good person. I've made those notifications at roll calls. We lost a good friend and person today. And instead of focusing on how we lost them, let's focus on how they lived. And remember, feelings are everywhere. And if we say something stupid, you can't call it back like you can't call that bullet back. It's going to hurt somebody's heart. So let's honor how they lived. Let's not think about finding blame, because in the grief cycle, there's the shock, the denial, and then there's the anger and blame that shows up. So instead of finding blame, let's just kind of rally around each other and try to support each other.
The beauty of a debriefing is that it brings people together. You can see the cohesiveness of the group. If it's a work group, let's say they lost a fellow officer to suicide, it brings them together. It allows them to share their reactions and their stories about the person. And what will happen is you will notice that there's a bonding that takes place.
Many people look at this officer and say we should be honoring this officer's life, not just a single moment in time. And other people sit there and say that, it's a terrible thing, it reflects badly on us, so I'm not even going to attend the funeral. Most departments have to reconcile this through written policy and be able to have those policies in place so that we don't have to deal with them in an emotional time after a suicide. And hopefully they're going to come to the right decisions of letting their people come and grieve corporately together and honor an officer for his life, and not just a single act like this.
If the unit commander can feel comfortable with being able to be present at the funeral, then that goes a long way to saying, no, I am not ashamed of this officer. I care about him. I am sorry that this happened. I want to make a commitment in his or her name that it's not going to happen again.
I remember being at Don's funeral, and the chief didn't want to go. And the chief didn't want the honor guard at Don's funeral. And here's an officer who risked his life and had numerous medals of valor protecting the Sacramento community. And at the hour of his funeral, his memorial service, is the department abandoned him. And I remember going, and we weren't supposed to go in uniform. I went in uniform as a sign of respect to Don and his family. And I remember getting up and speaking. No one wanted to speak. It's, what do you say? Well, you can talk about how they lived, not about how they died.
If you're a unit commander and you've had to do that death notification for a suicide, and you're thinking in your heart, gosh, this was one of my people, and shouldn't I have seen it coming? You have a convert. You have someone that says, I will do whatever I have to do to not have to do another death notification.
Looking down at a friend's body covered with a tarp, and you saw him the night before, you think, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas I should have done if I could have known.
As a law enforcement officer, you're trained to observe and to take action immediately if the situation warrants it. When it comes to suicide prevention, the same methods apply. If you observe a fellow officer having a hard time coping with work or personal issues, and if they seem to be at risk of harming themselves, you must take action to prevent them from doing so.
911 emergency line. Help me, I'm dying. I'm a police officer. Help me. I'm a police officer. What do you need? Help me, I'm dying. Took too many pills. What kind of pills did you take? Please help me, police officer. I'm going to help you. Listen to me, okay? Just listen to me. Hello? Please help. What did you take? Sleeping pills. I took too many. How many did you take? They're in the garbage can. the packages in the garden.
You gotta tell me how many you took. What is your badge number?
Officer 1839, Frazier.
Why did you take the pills, Officer Frazier? Why?
Because I'm trying to kill myself.
Why?
I'm depressed.
Why are you depressed?
I'm stressing out too much stuff going on in my life. Please hurry up and help me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Please help me.
All right.
Help me, please.
We are going to help you, Officer Frazier.
I don't want to die.
Well, I don't want you to die either.
Please help me. 56 and 11, please help me.
We're on our way. All right? I ain't going to let you go. And I'm not going to let you be alone, okay? I promise. We all got to stick together, right?
Well, some of the stress things that led to me, trying to commit suicide was I went to a call where I had seen a deputy commit suicide, and that stressed me out, and I didn't get help for that. And I also had personal issues going on in my life where I was going through a divorce. I was being audited by the IRS. I had gotten to my first shooting where I shot at somebody, and I didn't get any help for that. I had seen Sid's death, and I had a little one at home, and that kind of affected me. All this stuff was coming to a head, and all of a sudden, I started noticing changes in my attitude. My attitude started changing. I would get upset at the smallest things that didn't bother me before, but now they started bothering me. I started getting headaches, couldn't sleep, didn't want to eat. Things that I used to love to do, I stopped wanting to do it. Didn't want to, go out and have fun. I wanted to stay to myself. And the next thing it was like I wanted the pain to stop. And then I felt like I couldn't provide for my family, and I couldn't do all the things I was doing before. And it's like something just happens, and the next thing you know, you're there before you even realize what's happening. And lucky for me that I didn't commit suicide, but I tried, and I was able to get through it with the help from our peer support. I lost a home. Now I own a home. I'm working again. I got my job back. I'm happy. I love life. I love people, and all this stuff, was gone. I had nothing but headaches. Now I feel 100% better, but it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. And I never thought in a million years I would be even sitting here. I thought I would, I thought I would be gone. But with the help from good people showing me what to do, and by me listening, not being a hardhead, you can get better. And I actually want everybody to know that you can get better.
We've been neglecting for too long, I think, the psychological aspect of this job, law enforcement. It is one of the most stressful jobs, and it has a higher rate of stressors than most jobs. And the higher rate of stressors are indicators that thoughts of suicide or isolation or depression is more likely than most other jobs. So organizations need to be clear that their people are just as important as their fleet, or their uniforms, or their, whatever impression they want to make on the public. Because if you have a healthy department mentally, everything sort of flows.
There was one instance outside California where a SWAT leader was found in the parking lot of his department's headquarters, and he had killed himself. But when they first arrived, people looked at it and said, "Oh my God, somebody's killed him," because they couldn't believe that someone was such high statured and someone that was the go-to person could have done this. And on our department, we've had instances where people on paper, you think, wow, they have a great life, a wonderful family, everything's going perfect for them, and it's just hard to understand how could they feel so alone and so isolated. And I think it goes back to the saying that it is an illness, it is a sickness, and there is help out there. That's the good news. There is help out there for everyone that's feeling like they're on the continuum and maybe bad things will happen. Hey, there's a lot of different avenues you can explore.
When a manager or a coworker hears that they have had a significant breakup, and then you pile on top of that, they hear that they're drinking alcohol to excess, and then now they're getting into some trouble at work. Well, the one thing that they have to hold on to is their job. And when that starts to look like that might be taken away or they're going to get in trouble, and then their significant breakup means that they're alone, then those are the people that are at highest risk.
When you look at the ratio of
how many officers are usually taken out by bad guys as opposed to being taken out by themselves? It's conservatively a 1-to-3 ratio. So it is something that is alive and very prominent in law enforcement. And so it's something we should talk about, but it makes it all the more scary, and so people have a tendency to stay away from it.
When you look at what leads to suicide, what are the reasons that law enforcement will point to, the number one by far is relationship issues. We're talking from 30 to 60% of cops that commit suicide. If you do like a psychological autopsy, then you're going to find a relationship issue. After that, then you kind of get a hodgepodge of other issues that are smaller but still there.
It's not necessarily the street stuff, it's the emotional stuff. Those are always high. Relationships, grievances, work-related stuff, not the incidents, but the in-house, the drama that goes on, the soap operas that you might call them, that goes on within the environment, of police work.
When people go through a critical incident or some kind of major impactful event, it's as though they walk through a door and things are never the same anymore. And they start acting differently, and they start feeling like everything they're doing is meaningless and people don't understand them. And they're right. They're right. So what has to be done is stop and ask the person, what's going on? What can we do? Let's have a partnership in trying to resolve this. And that's the way they're going to have to approach it. And so far, we haven't done a very good job in that respect.
Although officers can detach emotionally, dealing with strangers on the street and then coming home and having to deal with personal stuff, because it's extremely different. On the street, they have to detach, and at home, they have to be present. So it's really tough to be able to change hats and survive at home.
One of the other things that we see often in officer suicide is perfectionism. And that perfectionism is oftentimes related to unrealistic expectations of self. So someone who, and it's not wrong to aim for the top and to shoot for excellence, but sometimes you'll find an officer who just beats up on themselves because they don't measure up to their own standard of perfection. And there is something to watch out for there if someone is not measuring up and they're self-flagellating, and that perfection in itself can be a motivator to say, I can't measure up, why bother, why try?
A suicide attempt means you actually do something. You pull the trigger, you jump in front of the car, you take the pills, and you survive. And gestures are very common. All the time. And so to be able to respond effectively with suicidal issues, people have to know that just because they made a gesture or they had ideation is not going to ruin their career.
The vast majority of people that have suicidal ideation, that are thinking about suicide, they resolve it by just talking to somebody. And maybe it's a friend or a family. And then the next layer up is a small percentage say, I think I need something more. I need to talk to a counselor, a mental health professional, a chaplain, someone outside my friends and family.
The reason I asked you in is I need to advise you that you're under investigation for alleged misconduct. Because of the seriousness of the allegation, you're being placed on administrative time off. And I'm also going to need your badge today. I'm going to explain what's going to happen. Reggie, here are the associated documents with your administrative time off. And tomorrow morning, you're going to be interviewed with regard to the investigation. Now, I need to direct you not to discuss this with anyone. However, I would suggest you speak with your area representative. I think I saw him in the hallway just a few minutes ago. So when you leave here, I suggest you go and speak with him, okay? Now, Reggie, I understand this is a difficult situation that you're in, and you may be feeling overwhelmed at this point, and it may just get more compounded. I want to give you this card. It's the Employee Assistance Program that the department offers. I would encourage you to call them if you are feeling that overwhelmed feeling at any time, okay? It's a very beneficial program to look into. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
No, I'll just go talk to the area rep.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Reggie.
to you for a minute?
Sure. Yeah, I'll catch up with you later. What's going on?
I just got this. Now what am I supposed to do?
All right, why don't we go outside and talk about this?
Okay.
Let's see here. Anyway, this looks pretty serious. What happened?
And they're on my case for everything. My wife just lost her job. And if I lose my job, man, I don't know how I'm gonna handle it. I got a house payment, I got a motorcycle payment, I got a car payment, I got kids. I don't know how I'm gonna handle it, man. They're on my case at work for being late. I called in sick twice because my kid was sick.
Seems like you got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I can help you out with the admin stuff, no problem at all. We can get to that. But I gotta tell you, I mean, with all the stuff going on, you don't seem like Reggie to me. I mean, you're not your regular self. I'd like to maybe get somebody involved from peer support so we can work on some of the other stuff that's going on besides just the admin issue.
Man, I don't need to talk to anyone. I can handle this myself.
Yeah, I know you can. I know you. But I'd feel better if both of us got somebody online we could talk to from peer support and maybe work through some of this other stuff. You know Mike Ellery, right?
I know Mike.
Mind if we give him a call right now and we get him on board some of the peer support stuff so we can get this going?
That's cool. I'll talk to Mike.
All right, let me give him a call. Hey, Mike, it's Mike. How you doing? Hey, I'm here with Reggie at the office. Needs to talk to you about some stuff we got going on. You got a second to talk to him? All right, hold on one second. I'll put him on.
Hey, Mike, man. How you doing? Yeah, I've run into a bit of trouble now, man.
It's really important that our officers understand because they have a problem doesn't mean they're going to lose their badge and their gun. I think that's the biggest fear of our officers, all police officers. Their identity is lost if they lose their badge and their gun. And that's not the case just because you're feeling hopeless. There are solutions, and sometimes you just need someone else to help you get through those solutions.
Since September of '03, we've had 15 employees of the California Highway Patrol commit suicide. And more specifically, last year there was 8 employees of the California Highway Patrol commit suicide. So with those increased numbers, we knew that it was time to really take a serious look at what we were doing. But having said that, we also realized that this isn't just something that the management level of the California Highway Patrol can solve this problem. It needs to be a collaborative approach with a lot of people weighing in on it. We had people with the union come and speak with us on what the union could offer, our peer support, training for them on what they can offer to help people out there, and all the different avenues that someone that's very depressed or very stressed, very different avenues that they can utilize to help them through the issue. Some of our suicide involved people that were under investigation. And by that, if you were under investigation, you would probably be working closely with your union representative, and you'd probably be working closely with the supervisor. So with both of those people being trained in some of the signs and symptoms, we felt that perhaps that would be another avenue that we could tap into and see if we could get the word out.
The way that we train with the Law Enforcement Wellness Association is QPR method. Q is for asking the question. You can ask it indirectly, or you can ask it directly. Indirectly would be, how long have you been sad? You know, what makes you unhappy? And then the direct question would be, are you going to kill yourself? Are you thinking of committing suicide? Which is direct. You have to be direct. P stands for persuade, persuading them to get help. And R stands for referral, which means referring them to someone that you trust or know in the mental health field to get them some help, or driving them there and making sure that you don't leave them alone and take them. The great thing about QPR is they're coming out right now with some research, and which is excellent because it's evidence-based on whether it works or not, and they're finding that it is one of the absolute best ways to prevent suicide.
A lot of officers find it difficult to go to management over any issue. In a situation like this, there has to be an evaluation made of what that officer is saying. Is the officer upset with his wife over a divorce situation? Did you see that maybe the officer seems to be partying a little bit too much, maybe drinking a little bit too much? Are both those in combination? Those may be handled through peer. Now, if the officer just comes out and says he wants to kill himself, or there's some really severe thing happening, then that's when a supervisor is probably going to have to be brought in, along with peer. Work in combination with this, but you got to take the nature of what it is, the seriousness of the situation, and then let that dictate your response.
Regarding responsibility of our team members, it's very important, and we train quarterly. It's a mandatory training we have to go to. So our peer support team, CISM team, we train, but we also bring in the other caregivers. We bring in the police chaplains. We bring in the mental health care professionals. We bring in police managers and police management teams sometimes to hear what training we're getting so they realize how we all have to work together. Because if we don't work together for success for our police family, it just isn't going to work.
Some of the tools that we use in employee assistance to help our law enforcement, one of the things we do is we train supervisors. And so we train supervisors to recognize the signs and symptoms of someone in distress, and to respond to it accordingly. Another thing we do in employee assistance is we're available. We've got 24/7 availability when somebody does need to talk. We also are a great resource for supervisors. If supervisors need to run a situation by us and get some feedback as to what they should do, we're able to respond to that. We also respond to critical incidents when needed, and in hopes that we avoid those, but we do respond alongside the other law enforcement resources.
But we need to encourage an environment that seeking help is not considered a weakness, that people have the resources to go to, and this really does need to ripple throughout the entire organization. It isn't just one or two folks. 10-member peer support team is not going to be able to save your whole agency. Everybody needs to be on board and realize the impact and how important it is and how difficult it is for law enforcement to seek help.
I think it's a reality these days that there's going to be some liability if administrators or the police department knew or should have known that some of their personnel was at risk. Unfortunately, we have the tendency to stick our head in the sand and not look at it. And it doesn't make any sense because we expect and accept liability in those situations which are fairly uncommon but have a great danger and liability potential, such as shootouts or riots or bank robberies or things like that. And this is the same kind of an issue, but in terms of husbanding our personnel, our human resources.
A critical incident, by definition, is sudden and unexpected, and it overwhelms a person's normal coping mechanisms. So in law enforcement, we all recognize when somebody's been in a shooting, they've probably been traumatized and we need to support them. Or if they've been in a major pursuit and somebody's been injured badly or gone to the hospital, we need to support them through that. Or they've seen a baby that's been, shaken baby and killed, we need to help with that. What we often forget is that being placed on administrative leave behind an internal affairs complaint is often more traumatic than the other examples I gave because the support doesn't rush to you and you're ordered by internal affairs not to talk about it, yet you have all this stuff that you need to get off your chest because you're thinking, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my house? What's everybody saying? Your reputation is so important that your self-esteem is tied up in that too. So agencies need to recognize that officers that are placed on leave behind internal affairs complaints need to be taken care of and given some kind of aid too.
I think it's really important for us to demystify suicide because the things that happen before someone commits suicide are human things, human losses, human emotions, human isolation, and there's no mystery to that. So it's important that we realize that we need to respond in those situations and not be ashamed of them and really bring the whole idea of suicide prevention out of the closet.
One of our officers left our department under a discipline situation. And of course, after a person leaves the department, there's no way of tracking that officer anymore. He ended up falling deeper and deeper into alcohol. And the last we heard, he had walked in front of a train in Reno. And this guy he was a prime guy in the department. He was one of these young rookies that everybody thought was a great guy. And got into a divorce situation, got into a pursuit with officers chasing him, lost his job after the pursuit, and then ends up walking in front of a train. That's sad that something couldn't have been done to prevent that.
I believe suicide is preventable, and if people will reach out to others that they can trust, it could definitely make a difference, and they can find out that there are other choices besides suicide.
What really hit home with the whole suicide prevention issue was when I read a suicide note personally. I had sent an officer to a region to assist the family, and I rode back on the airplane with him, and he asked me if I wanted to read the note. And the note was written by a fellow I used to work with. So I read that, and it hit a chord deep in my inside that we've got to do something different. And if in fact we could, it's our responsibility to do something.
Knowing what to look for in an officer considering taking his or her life is something that everyone in law enforcement should be trained to be aware of. If you know the warning signs and triggers that may set off a suicidal episode, you may be able to help the person get through that crisis and get relief from their pain. You may be able to help save a fellow officer's life.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up. I should be out there in a little while. Yeah, I'll see you later, Holly. All right, bye.
Hey, is that my wife you're talking to?
Yeah, it is.
You got something going on with my wife?
Dude, whatever you want.
Oh,
man.
so it's because of you that
No,
she's leaving
you
me.
just need to deal with it.
Because of you, you need to
deal with it.
Get out of here.
I don't know what we're going to do about Andy, but thanks for coming by last night.
Oh, no problem. We'll see what happens.
All right. I'm just really worried.
Is he supposed to be at work?
Yeah, he should be.
Okay.
He should be.
We'll see what happens.
All right. See you at work later.
All right. Looking
Bye.
forward to it.
Bye-bye.
I knew it. God, why's she doing this to me? I need to go talk to her. Holly, open the door! Holly, open the fucking door!
Andy!
Open the door!
Shut up!
Open
Shut
the
up!
door!
You shut the fuck
Open
up.
the fucking
neighbors
door!
Are gonna hear.
Open
Calm
the fucking
down.
door!
Calm down.
door.
I'm not
This
opening
is
up
my
this door.
house.
It's not your house anymore. You don't live here anymore.
Just
now
open the
calm
door.
down.
Open the
calm
door.
down.
I'm calm. I'm calm. Open the door. I'm calming down. What's your problem?
You smell like alcohol, Andy.
What do you mean I smell? Of course I smell like alcohol. I just watched you out there
Andy,
kissing the guy
Andy,
twice.
Andy, it's none of your business.
What are you doing
I'm
kissing
not
him?
gonna
You
discuss
said
this.
you were
I
not
have to go
gonna.
to work.
You said you were
I
not.
have to go to work.
Listen
I
to me.
have to go to work.
Listen to me. You said you were not
I'm
going to
not
see him
going
anymore.
to talk
You
about
said
this
you were going to give us a
anymore.
chance.
Calm down.
You said you were going to give
You're
me and the
drunk,
kids
Andy.
a chance.
You're
One more
drunk.
time.
I'm not
Of course
gonna
I'm drunk.
No.
You'd be drunk too if you
I'm
watched
going
me
to work,
kissing
Andy.
some other bitch.
Go away. Go
Listen
away.
to me.
Go away.
Holly.
Get out of my house, Andy.
Listen to me.
Get out of my house.
Holly.
Andy, I'm not going to talk
Holly.
to you. Andy, please
Holly.
leave.
Holly, I
Andy.
need you. I need you. I need to talk to you.
No, Andy,
Maybe-
I can't talk anymore.
I feel like just ending it for both of us.
Andy, don't talk like that.
I can't
I'm going
live
to call
without
Jim.
you.
I'm calling Jim.
No, don't call Jim.
Jim will help you.
I
Jim.
need you.
Jim, it's Holly.
Hey, get off the
He's
phone.
back. He's back.
Don't call Jim.
He's back.
Holly.
And he's threatening to hurt himself. He's threatening
Holly.
to hurt me. I don't know if he has his gun
Don't
with
call
him.
Jim. Holly,
I
hang
need
up the
you
phone.
over here. I think you might be able to talk some sense into him.
Holly, we need
Please
to
get
talk.
over here.
Hang up
Please.
the phone.
He's in the house.
Holly.
Here are some myths about suicide. Suicides are impulsive acts. False. Most suicides are thought out, and many people have left clues or warnings. Suicidal people really want to die and nothing can stop them. False. Most people are undecided. Most just want the pain to stop. Once a person is suicidal, then they will always be suicidal. False. Suicide crises are short-term. With help, a suicidal person may never be suicidal again.
Whatever impacts the cop impacts the job. So the supervisors need to be aware of the signs and symptoms, they need to know what the resources are, and they need to not hesitate and to actually provide those resources.
When it comes to warning signs, law enforcement ought to be paying close attention to changes. Changes in someone's behavior, changes in someone's mood, changes in the way they are. So it's as if you know how someone was before, and when they're not their normal selves, that should be a clue to pay attention. What's going on? Are they more isolated? Are they angrier? Are they having outbursts? Are they throwing little hints that there are problems in their relationships? Are they just not getting along with others? Are they particularly isolating themselves? I think it's a great risk when someone disconnect from others, and it's very important to recognize those kinds of things that are indicators at work that someone is at risk or that someone is just in distress.
Another thing that can trigger problems is a relationship breakup, a critical incident, or multiple critical incidents within a short period of time, or a critical incident that's reminiscent of something that maybe they experienced 10 years ago that brings back up the stuff from the first critical incident. So these are the kinds of things that a supervisor might want to be educated in and aware of as they try to oversee their officers and make sure that their officers are well and healthy to work on the street, as well as civilian personnel.
Well, alcohol plays a big role in suicide. It diminishes their impulse control. It also gives them the courage to follow through with something they may not do if they were sober. And it just sort of exacerbates the isolation, depression, which can each lead to thoughts of suicide or acting upon suicide.
I kind of came up with a situation in my own career, and I was going through a divorce. I was in debt, and I had a discipline situation going on. I kind of call it the killer D's. And if you have these things going on in your life in combination, and you're not dealing with them, they just build up.
The emotional stuff at home can be discounted. I don't need to be emotional. I could just spend a lot of time at work or work overtime forever or get divorced and stay at work and my job is my life and all that kind of stuff. So the emotional stuff is too hard. It's too difficult. It's much easier to be detached. And so a lot of cops choose that path because the interpersonal relationships usually fail. And it's too difficult to talk about or deal with emotions because it interferes with functioning on the street, literally.
In law enforcement, the pressure to be perfect sometimes overwhelms an officer's ability to deal with the balance of work and family life. For Hank Adams, after years in law enforcement, his inability to cope with his divorce and custody of his 5 young daughters pushed him to do the unthinkable.
My father's police career started very young, when he was 18, I believe. My mother became pregnant with me, and my dad was just getting out of high school. They were both in high school. The marital issues and control issues that I witnessed throughout my entire growing up would definitely always had to circle back to his profession. Anytime he didn't have control over something, it was never something that brought our family closer together. It was always something that had him angry at somebody, normally my mom. The actual day that it happened, we didn't hear a car pull up, we didn't hear a door open. He just was kind of there, and I turned around and he was sobbing. He had lost so much weight. He was wearing a suit and it looked just like he was sort of swimming in it. He looked dazed. It did not look like himself. And my mom noticed him as well and just sort of went, like, uh-oh, because it was out of place. He wasn't supposed to be there. And he reached into his coat as if to pull out a wallet, and he pulled out the gun, and my mom and I both saw it, and it was so quick. And again, it sort of now is much more of a blur, but he knelt down next to her. She was sitting on the floor with the baby, and he
pushed her head to the ground and he shot her twice in the head. And the whole time I was yanking on his arm, sort of wondering if this was even real. And it was, but it was very loud. It was very, it was inches from my face. So I knew it was real, but just didn't think he would ever do it. And then he stood up, still sobbing. I saw blood coming from my mom's head. At that point I realized that this is real. The poor little baby started screaming, and he took about 5 steps backwards and shot himself in the head. The things I think about most when I think about what actually happened was what a waste and what a bad, bad decision. My whole growing up, I had a great growing up. I had a great dad, a great mom. My dad was very, very strong, very smart, instilled a lot of really great things in me, I think, because of what he has learned and knew. And I think it's what made me a really strong person in just the way I was raised. But if I could say something to him now, it would be that what a bad mistake. The only things that are final are really death. That he could have gone on with his career. He could have watched my sister and I get married. He could have watched my little sisters grow up and go to college. And why make that ultimate mistake? Anything else could have been fixed. Anything else except that.
Hello.
Officer Myers.
Yeah, who's this?
Hi, this is Sergeant Tibbs. How you doing?
Oh, not so good.
Okay, well, I was asked to give you a call and check on the progress of your recovery and see when you might be able to come back to work.
Doctor says I'm not getting any better. I've already had 2 surgeries. The pills aren't working anymore. I'm in a whole lot of pain.
Uh-huh.
And he said I'll probably never be able to work again. I'm only 35 years old, and I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my career.
Now, it sounds like you're going through some pretty rough times. Have you talked to anybody? Have you gotten any kind of support?
No, I don't have anybody to talk to.
Mm-hmm. What about neighbors, friends, family, anybody you're close to?
No, all my family's back east. They didn't want me doing this job to begin with. I'm not going to call and burden them with my problems.
Uh-huh.
I've waited all these years to get on the bikes. Now it looks like I'm never going to ride again. I can't sleep. My pain is unbearable. I just don't think I can live like this anymore.
Well, what do you mean you don't think you can live like this anymore?
I'd just rather be dead than have to live in this kind of pain.
Have you been thinking about suicide?
Well, I've thought about it. I've got a lot of pills I can take, but I just can't do that to my mother.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. You just keep thinking about that. Think about your mother. Listen, I have a friend over at EAP, the Employee Assistance Program. Her name's Leanne Kennedy. Okay, she's a good friend of mine, and I think she can help you out. Would you mind if I have her give you a call?
No. Go ahead and have her call me. I don't have anybody else.
Good. She's a real good person, okay, and I think she can really help you out. I'm going to have her give you a call, and go ahead and hang up, and she'll call you back in a few minutes, okay?
All right. Hey, thank you.
You bet. You hang in there.
Okay. Bye.
Hello, Leanne? Hi, yeah, listen, I need you to give somebody a call. She's in a real tough spot. She's not feeling like she's wants to go on anymore. She's been in an accident, and she's taking all kinds of medications to help her out, and she's having a hard time. Let me give you her phone number and her name.
I think one of the most important and disenfranchised or hidden losses that are not discussed is the officer who retires from the job due to a disability, a line of duty injury, or a mental health disability, or a medical crisis that's going on. And the assumption is that because they're getting monetary care and they're getting insurance, that they're going to be okay. I believe that law enforcement agencies have a definitive obligation to look after the mental health of the officers. Not that there's a conspiracy behind the lack of attention to the losses, but the fact is that those losses occur as a result of job-related experiences. And even if it's outside of the job-related experiences, the identity of a police officer, the process of becoming one, the filial aspect, the family aspect, feeling of the belonging, is taken away when an officer retires. To leave them just out there makes no sense at all.
For the person who's not in play anymore, it is personal. It does feel like they're being actively excluded. And that's why programs such as disability outreach, where people are assigned to actively get a hold of folks who are not there and see what can be done, if anything, to help them or their families, is so important. And it's part of what can help people from becoming isolated. Because it's not uncommon for people to be on long-term disability and therefore isolated, who are at risk for suicide.
It's important to engender a community or a culture, an identity outside of being a police officer and having relationships, ideas, creativity, attitudes, values that are also complementary to being a police officer, but separate and distinct, and developing that within the officer so that if a retirement has to occur because of medical or mental health reasons, there's an optional way of dealing with it which helps in terms of that transition.
Isolation for officers can contribute to depression. Depression can contribute to thoughts of suicide, and thoughts of suicide can contribute to acting on it.
Untreated depression is actually the main and major reason why people commit suicide. The untreated depression affects everything in their life. It affects their job, it affects their relationships, their families, their view of the world. They'll have a distorted view of everything around them because of the untreated depression.
People with depression oftentimes have come to the point where they want help, but they don't have the energy to ask for it. And it's like they're below the surface, trying to get to the surface to yell for help, but the seaweed is wrapped around their head and it's dragging them down, and they can't push their way to the top. And so it's not always a depressed person won't ask for help, it's that they feel that they can't.
I would rather go on a ride along with somebody in law enforcement on an antidepressant than somebody that should be on the antidepressant. They're not habit forming. It helps a person through maybe a traumatic event. It helps them through cumulative stress events that can affect the brain chemistry. And it may not be a lifetime commitment to taking an antidepressant, but I can tell you with medication and talk therapy, it's like a miracle.
A lot of officers say, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't need medicine. And that's that, I need to be strong. I don't want to be seen as weak. God made medicine and we take it to get better. And so I'd encourage any officer that's depressed to look at medication as an answer, because our officers function well under antidepressants, and it is an answer that can solve a lot of the problems.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Sherry. Nice
Andy.
to meet you.
This is
Andy.
Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Have a seat. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I have worked extensively with law enforcement and understand some of the challenges that you have before you. And I can appreciate a lot of the things you've been through and the situation you find yourself in now.
Well, that's the reason I called you, because you have done this before, and I didn't want to have to go through this over and over and over again. I talked to many of my friends, and they recommended you personally. I gotta say, a couple of them had the same problems as me. But a few months ago, it's been really bad, and it's mostly or all me. A lot of arguments. I've been drinking a lot, which I've recently been going through a lot of AA meetings, so I've been working on that. It's been really well. I've been able to see my kids, be able to help coach in the football games, so it's been really, really good.
How has this affected you, Holly?
I think he's gotten better. You know, we're working together to try to work together for the kids. I mean, we're no longer married, and he understands that, and I'm moving on and he's moving on. But I think things overall are getting better, and the kids are glad to have their dad back.
Okay. Let's get started, and let's decide what we're going to focus on as we go through this process of trying to help you put your lives back together.
It's the feeling stuff, the stuff that doesn't work at home, that's most difficult to deal with. That brings up a lot of sadness and fear, and that's the stuff that cops don't like to touch. And that's the stuff that they're not good at. And that's the stuff that you need to work the hardest at. So that's why long-term therapy stuff for cops is fearful, something that they don't want to delve into because it can leave them feeling weak. And in reality, dealing with those emotions and becoming vulnerable actually makes them stronger. Because then they have a chance to function in a healthy way. And then with the next issue that comes up, they have the tools in place and they have the coping mechanisms and the support systems that they learned through therapy or they learned through getting closer with an interpersonal relationship like a marriage or relationship or family.
I think the combination of police officer / psychologist is perfect because I've walked in their boots and I've done the role that the cops have, and 27 years as a uniform officer, as a detective, as an NCO, corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, and being in the situations that they've been in, felt the same stressors, and then also have an understanding from a psychological perspective how these stressors work.
They live with tragedy and trauma and ugliness every day, and if the psychologist can't hear it, then how the hell are they going to help the cop deal with it? So it is absolutely crucial that the mental health professional have exposure and understanding and comfort with law enforcement world, because we are going into their world and we better know what we're doing.
I think coping strategies are very important. I think that people should seek help, or even if they don't seek help professionally, that they should turn to somebody that they trust and that they feel comfortable with and open up and talk about some of the things that they might be going through. And they're going to find out that a lot of those things that they're going through are very normal, and it can better help them cope with the situation.
A lot of times, if we think someone is down, so to say, we might say, oh, all he or she needs is, come on, let's go party after work, or let's go drink. So we might use alcohol as a way to get the person to not feel their problems, and when that really can just exacerbate their problems.
When an officer is in crisis, the best way to intervene is to help them normalize and validate that what they're going through is a temporary situation, and they can succeed through it to come out on the other end. But they need somebody to sort of talk them and walk them through that process. It's also important to find out what network of friends are available that are current in their lives, so that they can then, everybody sort of is on the same page, get hooked in together to do somewhat of an intervention to get them the support that they deserve.
When we go talk to people, we sit down, we listen. Again, we listen and we listen, sometimes to the nth degree, and then we have to communicate. But when that person says, when we begin to speak, you don't know what I'm going through, when we can say back to them, we've been there, we've done that. We've had thoughts of suicide. We've had marital problems. We're on our third or fourth spouse, and there is life after, a divorce, and there is life after financial problems. If we have people that specialize in those areas or have been there, done that, we try to pick on those people first if we know the issue we're moving toward.
I'm not going to be judgmental. I'm not going to look at them like they're bad or they're crazy just because they're having suicidal thoughts. A lot of people have suicidal thoughts. It doesn't mean anything bad about them. It says where they're at this moment. It doesn't mean they're going to be suicidal forever. It just means that that's where they are right now. So I need to be able to get across to them that I'm not going to judge them, that I'm not going to freak out with what they say. I'm not going to go call the guys in the white coats. I'm not going to overreact and give some knee-jerk reaction.
And what I do is I try to get them to talk about the good times, and I turn those things they tell us into great times. And when I get them to admit that, oh yeah, those weren't just good, those were great times, and make them realize that their hopelessness that they've got right now, which is only a temporary fleeting thought, even though it seems like it'll never end for them, that hopeless thought, those hopeless thoughts that may take their life, are going to impact those children or those family members so greatly that they'll never have good times or great times with him or her again.
I think it's important that officers have the outlet to be able to speak up or express their feelings or confide in somebody within the organization so that they can get support. It's important not only to help empower them to feel heard, because once you express, it's just validating to be heard by somebody else.
Establishing those relationships ahead of time is important, because when an officer's in crisis, then they tend to reach out to those that they feel safest with. Fortunately for those people that I've had interventions with who have had suicidal ideation, every one of those is alive today because I think the pre-event relationship that we had developed let them feel safe enough to come to me at that point, and then I got them plugged into the right resources to help them for the long term. So it's very important to develop the relationship and then take the risk, because if you truly, love, there's no fear in love. And if you really care for these people, you're going to take that risk and build the relationships, and then hopefully that will going to save a life somewhere and save a family, hopefully.
As officer to officer, if I say to you, now I want you to promise that if you're thinking of hurting yourself, if you're thinking of killing yourself, that you'll first call me before you make that move. And that contract has worked well for me in the past. It's not safe in every situation, but it's worth trying. And it's not a matter of saying to the officer, I'm going to leave you alone now, but if you ever think of killing yourself, you should call me. It's, I'm getting you help. I will be back to you shortly. In the meantime, I want you to promise me that you won't do anything to harm yourself. And if you are thinking that way, that you'll call me right away. And then I get that verbal contract. And it works well officer to officer.
When it comes to one person making a difference, I think this is very important. It's not uncommon that you may be the first, the only, or the last person to speak to this individual when it comes to suicide. And I maintain the philosophy, and I boil it down to one word: act. You'll never be sorry you did. You'll always be sorry you didn't. So one person can make a difference, and in many cases does.
For Officer Rick Clary, after 22 plus years on duty and many critical incidents adding up and taking their toll, he found comfort in drinking with his buddies and isolating himself from his family. If it wasn't for his supervisor stepping in and giving him a place to go and discuss his problems, Rick wouldn't have the family and the life that he has today.
I worked a shift where I would get off at 11 and I would meet the guys after work at various locations, and we would drink to the wee. I would drink to the wee hours of the morning, and we would discuss what happened during the day and make. Sometimes I would make jokes of what we did to try to alleviate the stress, and that went on for years. It's common with police officers, and I refer to it as choir practice. And you bring that up in a police circle, everybody knows what that means. So that's. And unfortunately, I started bringing this home a little too often, and I didn't realize I was doing that until later on.
The stressors were definitely too much for Rick, and I felt that he didn't know how to deal with them. He didn't know where to go for help, and I don't think he even recognized that he was under a lot of stress.
There was 18 months of my life that I've lost forever, and I'll never get that back. But I've learned something very important, and I learned how to deal with that. And then when the chief suggested that, I used the word suggested, that I go to the West Coast Post-Trauma Retreat, and I jumped on it and learned a lot about what was going on with my life, learned a lot about how the mind works and how alcohol affects you. Now, alcohol is a symptom of something that's more deeper. It's a problem. It's just a symptom of something else going wrong. And that's what they found out was going wrong. They diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder.
He now has the tools that he needs to deal with the stresses that he has at work. He knows, and I know, some of the warning signals that come upon him when he comes home from work if he's in a bad mood. He now knows why he's in a bad mood. He knows that he needs to come down from being up here on high alert to down here. He's got a family, they're 2 little kids, and he knows that the job is tough, but now I'm home and I need to shift into a different gear.
The day I got back from WCPR was a Friday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. I got home and my wife was there with my youngest son. And she goes, well, I'm going to go pick up Nick. Ricky's here. And Ricky, I told Ricky, I says, you know something, Daddy's better now. And I'm going to quit drinking. And he jumped up off my lap and he said, Daddy, I'm so proud of you. He's 5 years old at the time. So you don't think it affected him, what I was doing before? It sure did. Did I see it? No. Until that moment he did that, I had no idea what I was doing and how lucky I am now to have him still around. And because of what happened to me, I've made it a point to, let's see if I could pass this message on to somebody, if I could help one person. If I could help somebody who is so desperate that they feel it's necessary to drink or the ultimate is to end their life, if I could reach that person by simply just telling them my story and that to let them know that, you know, you're not alone. There is help out there. You can get better. Then I'll do whatever it takes.
I did. Go ahead and have a seat. I need to talk to you.
Now what am I supposed to do?
Hello?
Hello. Hi, is this Deputy Kyle?
Yes, it is.
Listen, you don't know me. My name is Ron Lewis. I'm a deputy with the River County SO, and I got your card from a Deputy Russ Moore, and he told me to give you a call if I thought I needed help. And right now, I need all the help that I can possibly get.
Okay, Ron.
Well, I don't know where to start. Well, a couple of weeks ago, a guy that I trained, I was his FTO, and he committed suicide. He was not just a trainee, he was my partner, and he committed suicide. And he was there for me when my wife died, and for whatever reason, I just know that I should have been there for him, and I wasn't. I don't know what to do.
Okay, Ron,
I'm having.
come over. Would you like
Please.
me to come over and talk with you?
If you don't mind, please, let me give you my address, okay?
Okay.
244 West Lexington Avenue.
244 West Lexington.
Yes, please. How long will it take?
I'm probably about 10 minutes away. Will you be okay?
Yeah, I'll be okay.
Okay, I will see you
I'll be
in just
okay.
a few minutes.
Okay, I'll be here waiting.
Okay, Ron. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, Ron.
Yes.
I'm Susan Kyle from Peer Support.
Oh, wow, look, thank you for coming so fast. I appreciate this.
Sure, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Come on and have a seat, please.
I think the law enforcement can better serve the officers that are left behind by a partner that has committed suicide by allowing them to talk about it and seek the professional help that they need if they choose to, possibly offer them employee assistance program or direct them in the to peer support people. And also, I think that with the family members, it's very important to do a follow-up with them to, see how everybody's doing and to see if there's anything that the department could assist them in, any resources that they may need.
Even though you have suicidal thoughts, I mean, we all have them, there's that one pivotal moment where that moment itself is so real that you actually think, God, I can do it right now. I can do it right now. And if you can catch them before that moment, or even at that moment, before they take that step, and give them that understanding, and give them those tools, and give them those outlets, and let them know above and beyond all that it will be okay.
Personally,
I have done a 180 in my thinking on how to address this. A year ago, prior to a lot of these suicides and who they were happening to that I knew personally, I was thinking, hey, this is a private decision that an individual makes. It's a breakdown in their character, and it's not our responsibility. Well, I have since done a 180 myself personally. I know the stresses that are out there, and that trauma, that stress, has to affect you, and we have to have a coping mechanism to deal with it, or emotionally they add up until people just can't take it anymore.
If there's somebody that I could talk to that was considering this type of act, I would tell them to not be ashamed and not be embarrassed. It's not time, that's not the time to be a tough guy and tough policeman. It's, that's time to go lean on your friends who are your true friends, or your family that is your true family. I believe suicide is preventable, and if people will reach out to others that they can trust, it could definitely make a difference, and they can find out that there are other choices besides suicide.
What I would say to someone who was contemplating suicide or hurting themselves is that, ask for help. Even though you might have the macho thing going, male or female, ask for help, because you can get better. It will work for you if you put the effort in. All you have to do is put the effort in, and it will work for you, because I'm the proof.
We've always called the California Highway Patrol a family, and as a family, that is our top priority, is to make sure we're healthy, we're well. And culturally, if this organization is allowing things to affect the well-being, we have to change that. We have to make change, and it's long overdue.
I have no control over tomorrow. I have no control over yesterday. But I do have control on what's going on with my life at this moment. And I think that's a very healthy way to live your life. And it really does help the stress in my life. I don't miss a basketball game. I don't miss a baseball game. I've been able to enjoy the last almost 3 years now every aspect of my family's life that before I just missed. I probably missed 5 years. There's a 5-year stretch in my life that's gone forever. And I don't want to see anybody else go through what I've gone through. And if I could reach out and help somebody, I will. Whatever it takes.
We can't take our stress out at work. We can't go home and take our stress out on our family. We have to have other outlets for that stress. And I think if you have a balanced life where you have hobbies, you have friends who are outside of law enforcement, you have a support system that isn't based solely in that core of law enforcement friends and family, that it's more healthy. Because if something does happen, and you are in a situation as a police officer where you're not able to do the job anymore, whether it's because of administrative action or you're injured, if all you have is that core law enforcement group of friends and family, you may lose them. And you may be in a situation where you find yourself unable to speak to anybody, have no support system, nobody else you can talk to, because all those people have been taken away from you based on what's happened to you. If you have that balance where you have those people outside of law enforcement, you have those hobbies that are outside the law enforcement realm, those things that you go and do and take comfort in and have fun in, and perhaps exercise and pick up a new hobby, I think that's the type of thing that will help you if something were to happen in your career where you weren't able to do the job anymore. So I believe balance of life is extremely important for police officers' psychological survival.
There's always going to be stress in our job. We're not going to eliminate that. But let's deal with the problems that arise to a level that can take an officer to take their own life. And let's work at that. Let's stop that. And hopefully, if we can't stop it completely, we can at least dramatically reduce it.
The career choice of law enforcement carries with it an increased risk of suicide. It's up to police officers throughout the ranks to understand that the problem of police suicide will not just go away or that it doesn't exist. With active, open discussion, assistance, and innovative prevention programs, officers' lives can be saved. I'm Beth Ruyak. Thank you for your participation in this course.